Mark Middleton died last year in May of 2022. Mark Middleton was a special assistant to President Bill Clinton and was the assistant to the chief of staff during Clinton's presidency. Mark Middleton was the person who introduced Jeffrey Epstein to Bill and authorized Jeffrey Epstein's 17 visits to the White House during Clinton's presidency. Mark Middleton was found dead on a farm owned by a nonprofit agency with ties to the Clintons. He was found hanging from a tree with a shotgun wound that blew a hole through his chest. Mark Middleton, drove 30 miles away from his house to this farm that's coincidentally had ties to the Clintons, right? He bought a table, an extension cord, and a shotgun. He tied the extension cord around a tree, climbed on top of the table, put the extension cord around his neck, and then for good measure, shot himself in the chest with the shotgun before hanging himself. Okay. Now, I think the shotgun was going to do the job. Now, he didn't need to hang himself in the process, but hey, whatever. Maybe he was trying to make sure the job got done. Now, you would think this is this has foul play written all over it, right? And the cops would be investigating this as a murder, and the case is still open because there's no way Mark Middleton shot himself with a shotgun in the chest. Well, you're wrong. Exclusive. Arkansas cop rules suicide and death of Clinton aide linked to Jeffrey Epstein, who was found shot and tied to a tree with an electrical cord around his neck, despite no sign of weapon. All right. The grisly scene where a top Bill Clinton advisor was found hanged from a tree with a gunshot wound to his chest has finally been revealed 9 months after he died. But the sheriff's report into Mark Middleton's mysterious death raises more questions than answers, as it rules he died by suicide. And so it took 9 months for them to... Okay, whatever. Despite no sign of a weapon that killed him. All right. So, all of a sudden, after a year saying there was no gun found, right, at the scene, what we just read, the next day after that article was written, the police released a report saying there was a gun found at the scene. Exclusive! Shotgun was found near the body of Clinton aide linked to Jeffrey Epstein. He texted wife, found a perfect place for a nap before blasting his chest and falling from bench with electrical cord tied around his neck. All right. Papers released earlier by Perry County Sheriff Scott Montgomery said deputies who were called to his Harriff Ranch in Perryville, 1 hour west of Little Rock, after an abandoned BMW SUV was found there, specifically said there was no gun in the car. But now, further set of papers has been released to dailymail.com that says the weapon of the Stroger 12-gauge coach gun was found on the ground 30 feet from Middleton's body. All right? So this is the thing. Why wouldn't you just say there was a gun found at the scene? Why for like 9 months, almost a year, sit there and say there was not a gun found? That's what it's been reported on this whole time. That there was no gun around on the scene of the crime or the suicide, right? Why report that? And then just like after you say, oh, well, it was a suicide, then you come out and go, well, we also found a gun. It doesn't make any sense to me. And another thing that doesn't make any sense to me is the chances of Mark Middleton having the arm length to pull the trigger of a shotgun is highly unlikely. The barrel of a shotgun is 18 inches long, and you're looking at another 6 to 7 inches to the trigger. So that makes the trigger roughly 25 inches away from your body. No? And if you could reach the trigger, you would need to put enough force on the trigger to release the firing pin, which is highly unlikely. What is also unlikely, now, and if he somehow figured out a way to shoot himself with the shotgun, right? You know, maybe he grabbed a twig, a branch, and did it that way, right? Let's just say he did that. The gun flying out of his hands 30 yards away is impossible. That's a quarter of a football field. A shotgun weighs about 8 pounds. No, I can see it flying out of his hands maybe 5 feet and maybe 10 feet if it bounced on the ground and it did this weird little tumble thing, right? But to tumble 30 feet away? There's no way. There's no way at all. Now, what are the odds that the only man still alive who can connect the Clintons to Jeffrey Epstein will one day decide, fuck my teenage daughters and wife. I'm going to a ranch to blow a hole in my chest and hang myself because I not only want to die, but I also want to publicly humiliate my soon-to-be widowed wife and scar my 2 teenage daughters for life. No? What are the chances of him just being like, that's what I'm going to do? You know, instead of like going into the bathroom and just slitting his fucking wrists, he decides to go out a grisly way like that. That's gonna fucking harm his family for the rest of his life, for the rest of their lives. What are the chances? I say very slim. You know, and only the Clintons can get away with murder in the age of the cell phone.